Welcome, all you creatures of the night and late night prowlers. This is the latest podcast episode in gore and guts, slashers, screams and squeals, the paranormal, extraterrestrial, and the fucking supernatural. Talking about all the films which conjure up your nightmares, this is It Records. I'm Matt Johnson.
And I'm Peter Hansen.
And today we'll be tackling the 2008 monster horror, maybe not, film, Cloverfield. J.J. Abrams. We'll be tackling that one, Pete. This was yours. This is your pick this week.
It was.
Yeah, yes it was. But before we get into that, we left the viewer, not the viewer, you don't watch podcasts, you listen to us, with a Grizzly 2 update. Pete, were you going to fill us in on the backstory of why this star-studded film never got made?
Yeah, to give a little backstory behind it is that Grizzly, have you ever heard of it, Matt?
The bear? I'm familiar. Yeah.
Good quote there. I meant the movie. Grizzly was an answer after Jaws. Jaws was such a huge success
Okay.
So like the creature
70s, 80s time period?
1976.
Right after.
Like, literally right after this movie was made. They're like,
Okay.
right after Jaws was made, they're like, we gotta do Grizzly.
Got an idea. Bears.
And, like, every like, scene in this movie was just, like, the scariest Jaws on land. Like, it's just, like, no... like, there's no fault. Like, they know what they are.
Yeah.
And it was a huge success, a huge independent success. Really? And they made the most money for an independent horror film until Halloween came out.
No way.
Yeah.
What was that, 77?
78, I want to say.
78? Okay. So it's had its reign for a while.
Yeah, 2 years is not bad.
So then, that's Grizzly. That's
the first one, yes.
So, everybody's hoping for a Grizzly 2.
Yeah, which was like...
What happens, Pete?
Mid-80s. They're just like, let's make this, but with way more special effects because, you know...
Gotta go bigger.
Different, like, prosthetics and FX effects, whatever you want to call them, were, you know, at the height. You know, everyone was on their A game at the time.
Yeah.
But this one had a little bit of lower budget, so it had some problems getting like the bear shots and stuff. So they had a young Charlie Sheen,
okay,
a young George Clooney, and a young Laura Dern in this movie.
Wow. Okay, I'm interested.
They're all in it for like...
I'm buying a ticket.
They're all supposed to be in it for like 5 minutes or something. They're going to like a concert somewhere. So this is the little... Sorry for my little delay, but I wanted to give a little backstory of what Grizzly was. Because Grizzly 2...
Sure.
You're never going to see it, and you probably never will. I don't know if it's finished, but here's what the story I read about it says. Inside a bank vault somewhere is collecting dust in Manhattan, lies a fascinating pulp culture curiosity from the 1980s. It's called Grizzly 2. You probably never heard of the film. I like how they said that. You've certainly never seen it, but the story behind it is so bizarre, even the Hollywood standards, bizarre is the norm. And the tale involves, among other mishaps, stolen money, malfunctioning special effects, and a script that was rewritten by none other than the Hungarian Caterer. And I like how they, I'll give a little more info. There's a lot of information here, and I want to read it to you all.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm going to try...
Just dish us up a little more. I mean,
yeah.
I'm on board. Grizzly's a smash hit. You got Clooney, Sheen, and Dern. I mean, was there any scuttle between them?
I mean, they all had a great time. They were...
Of course.
They say it later in the article... They were filming somewhere in like Eastern Europe, and they were just having huge party. It was like Laura Dern was just partying with George Clooney and Charlie Sheen, and she had a great time.
Oh, man. Sounds like a great time. And then it never reached fruition for budget reasons, special effects, the whole gamut.
I'll fill you in a little bit right here.
Sure.
So, it's talk about Grizzly now. Grizzly ranked in 39 million, prompting producer Ed Montero to approach Sheldon to ask about a sequel. Sheldon and wife Joan McCall penned a script, but Montero couldn't raise the funds. That's when another producer, Joseph Proctor, stepped in. Sheldon agreed to move forward on condition he could direct. The movie plot was pretty straightforward. Music lovers gathered in a national park for a massive Woodstock-like concert. Nearby, a giant 20-foot-tall grizzly goes on a murderous rampage after poachers kill its young. As the bear threatens the concert, disemboweling people along the way, the park superintendent is determined that the show must go on.
The show must go on? Okay. Continue.
And I'm going to skip this part here. It's basically what I said earlier, that Laura Dern talking about how great it was, like, being there.
She had a great...
Like, she just was very young and was having a party with Clooney and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah. Yeah, in their heyday. Okay. All right. Were they weren't in the original, though?
No,
correct?
They were not. They were not.
They were not. They would have been in the sequel. Oh.
So,
okay.
One of the bigger challenges of the 1983 production involved staging the concert. The filmmakers decided it should be shot overseas, so Proctor partnered with Suzanne C. Nagy, a Hungarian economist turned producer. This movie would never be able to get a permit in the United States, says Nagy, now an artist and a gallery owner living in the West Village. To make a huge concert on film in a rural area is almost impossible, getting all the environmental permits. The cast and crew were flown into Hungary without our knowledge, and we were left behind with no explanation, Sheldon says. They had engaged a Hungarian director who had never directed a movie before. See what's coming? But no one could see what's coming. The director and the crew secured a Russian army base that was to serve as the concert venue instead of faking it. The filmmakers hired a Hungarian promoter to throw an actual concert. Some 50,000 fans showed up for the 3-day event, paying around $15 per ticket, which was a lot of money in Hungary at the time.
Yeah.
One of the bands included I Eat Cannibals Part 1. Filming began with one hitch. Some scenes needed to be rewritten, so the producers naturally turned to the most obvious choice, the movie's caterer. The caterer rewrote scenes, then started monkeying around with it, says the original scriptwriter. The result was distorted that they couldn't cut the film together. That was hardly the only problem. Instead of using bears, the production hired veteran effects man Nick Maley to create animatronic ones. Close-ups were to be shot with a man wearing a bear suit.
Oh, no.
And the bear just did not work. Along the way, there were the minor issue of much of the movie funds disappearing, which halted production until Nagy could raise more money. Where did the money go? More than a few fingerprints point to the producer, Proctor, the most shadowy character of the saga. He disappeared on me. He took the entire fund. If I remember correctly, says Nagy. I had to go to Chicago to testify because I had to prove that I was not a part of it. He got a minimum of $2 million that he later took and disappeared from his country. The guy was nowhere to be found.
What?
Proctor, however, is much easier to find these days. He's locked up in L.A. federal prison, serving 5 years for tax evasion.
Oh, it all adds up. It all started at Grizzly.
So that Sorry, that went a little longer than I thought, but I thought that was very interesting to share with everyone.
No, it was. I mean, I've been dying to hear it. I've been needing to research Grizzly too. But after hearing the backstory, Pete, I think we need to start a petition to get Clooney, Dern, and Sheen back on the set and make Grizzly 2 a reality.
Like reshoot it?
Reshoot it, or even better, use the footage they had and then just cut it with the new footage they make now. No one will tell the difference.
Oh boy, that would be great.
I would watch that movie. I need to watch Grizzly now. Grizzly 1.
You know, it's pretty average.
You know, for being such a hit in '76, it was alright. It's okay.
It's just an obvious cash grab, and it's entertaining, and it tries to be serious like Jaws, but fails. But when it fails, it's like really funny, and the other parts, it's just really boring, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you know, there's some nostalgia there for
some redeeming qualities to
for
it.
people who like '70s movies.
Yeah, I'm one of them. You know, love them. Love the '70s. But
born in the wrong
anywho,
decade, are you?
yeah, just the whole decade. Love it. But thanks for the tidbit on Grizzly 2. Let's head over to Cloverfield.
Completely different.
Yeah, we're gonna jump forward about 40 years, 30 to 40 years, and hit on Abrams, who was the executive producer of this one, Cloverfield 2008. And I'll just give you a quick summary, audience, for who haven't seen it. And if you haven't, get out from under that rock. This movie is about 8 years old and was a huge hit back in the day. But real quick, the summary is: a group of friends venture deep into the streets of New York on a rescue mission during a rampaging monster attack in Lower Manhattan.
Ooh.
That's the gist, a one-sentence little summary of the movie. That basically hits the premise of the movie. So yeah.
To deter our audience for a second, our creepy headlines, I'll keep it brief, since my my Grizzly 2 was very long. But I don't know how factual or credible this website is, but they say mysterious blood infection hits second state. A Michigan State resident has also died after contracting Elizabeth Kinga infection. Don't know what that is, but sounds deadly.
A mysterious blood infection?
That's what this Newsfer site says. That's the name of the website.
That is creepy. That is creepy, Pete, and terrifying. If the validity of this story is 100% honest, which I'm gonna say yes.
Wholeheartedly.
I'm gonna trust the internet as I usually do. Well, thanks for the creepy headline, Pete. We'll be looking forward to it next week on the podcast, as I always do.
It always brings a tingle to my spine.
It does. It gives me the chills, and I go to bed at night with nightmares. So thanks for that, Pete. Moving on to Cloverfield. We're gonna hit it. We're a little late getting to the game here, but we'll make it quick. We'll get to it. Cloverfield. What we're gonna try to hit on, really, right, Pete, is what you mentioned last week. You wanted to say, is it a horror film? Does it deserve to be in the horror genre, and defend it? Correct?
That is correct.
So, with that, can you just give us a brief rundown of your thesis, if you will? Thesis.
That's hard. That's hard to say three times fast.
I have trouble with S's.
Me too. I had speech class as a youth.
Oh, yeah, me too. You learn something new every day, Pete.
So
anyway, we said we'd get to it. Let's get to it.
I'm going to say Cloverfield is a horror film, and I want to say many people are going to disagree with me there, but Here's my say. I watched the making of Cloverfield after watching the movie, and just from my own interactions and how I viewed the movie, the movie is shot with a shaky cam, very prevalent in the horror genre at the time. So it was taking very common grounds there, and J.J. Abrams wanted to make a monster film because he was inspired by Godzilla films. You know, he was like wanted to make a very prominent monster character for America because Godzilla is such an icon. He wanted to make a movie like that. So it's deeply embedded in the monster genre, which obviously a subgenre of the horror genre. So that's kind of where my argument comes in. There's this, a lot of its influences is deeply rooted in the horror genre.
True. And that's where, if I may step in, I'm conflicted with, is it horror, is it not? Because for me, there's like a distinction between horror and sci-fi. And with horror, basically, the monster is definitely a subgenre of the horror genre itself, but monsters themselves can be sci-fi. Like, I would argue sometimes that Frankenstein is sci-fi because the main catalyst of it is science driving the fiction, which is the point of science fiction. So we don't really get any backstory on the monster in this so much, you know, like where it came from, what it was. So I would lean towards the idea of that's a monster horror film. It's the supernatural, it's the uncanny. You don't know where this thing is coming from or really why it is vengeful towards the human species. So I would lean towards agreeing that it's the horror genre, but I wouldn't say all monster films for me fall in that genre.
That's fair.
Genre. I feel like I said that 8 times in a row.
It does bleed sci-fi very heavily, so I would agree with you there that I don't know. It's a really good. I think it's actually a pretty good mix of the two.
I do too. And that's what I kind of came upon when I was reading. Because originally I was like, this isn't horror, but if I can, when I came upon some of my research and my readings that really kind of pushed me over the edge, that it isn't that horror is particularly a self-reflexive form. It often takes on direct references to its forebears, acknowledges its place in the larger tradition, if only to invert or undercut the assumptions and expectations of earlier works, which is exactly what Abrams was trying to do, is what he said with Godzilla, and he wanted to make that an American version, so he held very strongly to the past traditions of the horror genre, of the monster genre, I guess. So I guess in that capacity, that it made me believe more that it was horror than a sci-fi movie, because it doesn't necessarily delve into the science as much. Really, not at all. It's really these main characters struggling to survive against an invasion.
Yeah. From a very unique perspective at the time, I think.
Yeah. I think so. With that, should we kind of, I guess, get into the plot of the movie and why we think it's horror, why we think it's not horror, I guess, so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think we could just kind of discuss the plot pretty normally and just exemplify the parts that stick out for us the most.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. For me, one thing that I was trying to grasp onto, the characters, Pete. How did you feel about the main characters in this film? Do you feel sympathy for the victim? Were you drawn to the main characters? Or were your feelings towards them?
I think for the most part you are pretty drawn to them, as they do seem kind of not annoying, but they seem, I don't know, there's like a weird way to describe them, but they're done better than most. Let's say, like, comparing it to like a subpar horror movie, you care about them more because they seem a little more fleshed out, but they still do like kind of annoying things, like the main guy. Can't think of his name at the moment. Rob, thank you. He is the most annoying character to me.
Oh, very much so.
And I
agree.
really enjoy HUD even though he's like the comic relief the whole time, where
T.J. Miller.
yeah, great guy. He just, it's a good. I like that he's there, and he kind of brings you down from being serious, and then it sets you up for a moment to be tense again.
Okay, I could see that. Now that you explain it that way, I guess my initial second viewing, I mean, this time around, 'cause I haven't watched it probably since it came out, is when I was dealing with the characters and trying to get into their heads. I felt that they were kind of one-dimensional, and maybe it was just my drawn towards Rob. I was kind of annoyed with that he had to, and everybody followed him, like regardless of the situation. And I guess what best exemplifies that is an article I have here from the New York Times, and when they were talking about it, given to me by a great person behind the podcast, Lindsay Clark. Everybody, she's a great help to the podcast, but she gave me this article here, and what it says is they thought the filmmakers might be trying to make a point with the shaky cam, using it to maybe as a contemporary compulsion to record the world, or how it's dulled us to actual lived experiences, sort of. And once these things happen, how do we react to them? Because smartphones were coming out, you had all the digital cameras, and how we reacted to these things, but it really didn't take a stance, I guess, thematically on that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I kind of got it.
I thought there would be more of a deeper meaning behind the shaky cam, or just how we react to these certain things. Maybe it was like a societal mirror, but it just seemed like it was a way to film the movie.
I think it's a little more than that, as I would argue that as a monster film, like you said earlier, that the characters are pretty one-dimensional, which is very true for, I would say, probably about 99% of the monster films out there.
Yeah,
maybe the host from South Korea might be
that's true.
One to go against that, but other than that, I can't really think of one where I think the shaky cam is a great way to tell a story in this movie, because you are experiencing this attack from the point of the view of the humans, so it did give them kind of like a lot of teasing moments of them not really showing the monster, which I think was a good thing for this, because they had enough creepy moments to kind of surprise you, whereas, Godzilla movies, besides the newest American one, it's Godzilla.
Yeah.
Just, picking up buildings and destroying
that's true.
King Kingdra or Mothra.
No, that's a good point, I guess, without showing the monster too much and coming literally from the point of view of the victim or our main characters. You're put in their shoes. It's more suspenseful because the monster's not there and it's about them and their reactions. So that's a good point. I didn't think of it too deeply in that sense, but I like that.
I would say the scene that rang the most true for it being a horror was when they're underground in the subway.
Sure.
I really like that. So
the camera, the light not working on and off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the little monsters that fell off of it were cool and interesting to me, and brought like a new kind of like a little more mystery to the monster. You're like, what the fuck is this thing? And they kind of raise
that's true.
They kind of raise questions that kind of tease you. Here's a little spoiler here. I mean, this movie's a little old, but I guess it's possible for people not to see it. That they kind of like question the existence of the monster, like, how to get to be here? Is it an alien? Is it a government experiment, or is it from Earth? It was laying dormant for thousands of years.
Yeah, and you never really get a full answer.
Yeah.
on that, which Which it did build the suspense a bit and the menace of the creature. I did feel that the monster, the creature was more terrifying or menacing because of the unknown. There was never that conclusion scene of, oh, it's because of this, it's this, and this is the weakness of it. You know what I mean? Where I was constantly sort of like, what's going to happen next? What is this thing? That's something.
And another one of my favorite parts that is really horror to me is that when they find like the army and like right after, and Marlene,
Lizzie Kaplan?
Yeah, Lizzie Kaplan, Marlene is her character in the movie, is that she starts bleeding from the eyes and she's like infected from the bite that she got earlier, and then they're like, oh, we got a bite over here,
quarantine.
Yeah, and they just take her away, take her behind the scenes, behind a sheet, and she just like explodes into like blood.
Yeah.
And then when I first saw that, I was like, oh shit, what the fuck is happening? Like, I just really like that scene.
We got 4 civilians here. Roger. Let's go, move!
Okay.
Let's go!
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, excuse me. Listen, we need your help. Our friend, she's hurt. She's trapped in her building right by here at Columbus Circle.
Yeah, that is not where you want to be right
Do
now.
you guys know what it is out there? Do you know what that thing
They
is?
know, they ain't telling me. Whatever it is, it's winning.
What's up? Got another bite here.
Oh, look at that. Gross.
Please, we can't stay here. We have
now.
Copy that. Sir, we have 2 F-18s en route from Salford. 4 more are arming up, maybe 30 minutes out.
Listen up, people. Rack 'em and pack 'em. We're Phantoms in 15.
They held you find them. They were in the tunnel, sir.
We have
Gotta
to walk
go.
all the way from Springfield.
I'm ready for transport. I'm gonna leave that chopper.
Yes, sir.
No,
Let's move.
wait.
Move.
Listen, our friend is very badly hurt. We have to get to her.
Sorry, son, can't help you. Give him a
No,
chopper.
wait, please, listen to me. Let go. Just listen for a second, please. I'm sorry.
Goddamn camera.
We've been trying to get to our
Make our own way. We have a...
I am not jeopardizing this operation or my men.
I want your help. I'm
We're getting on that chopper now.
1 second, sir, please.
You have no idea what's out there.
I don't care what's out there. Listen to me. She's dying.
There is nothing I
The
can do
girl
about
that I
that
love
now.
more than anything is dying, and it's my fault. She should have been with me tonight, and I let her go, and I get it, okay? You have your hands full, I get that, but we're gonna go after her, and if you want to stop me, then you can have a shoot.
Bud, I don't feel so good.
Bart! We found
Hold on a second, wait a second. Marlena, are you okay? Hey, what are you guys doing? Hold on a second. Wait a second, where are you taking her? Hold on a second, wait. Oh my God, Marlena, stop! Just wait a second, please, just wait. Marlena, hold on a second. Just wait, let go of me, stop. Oh, God!
Yeah, that's like one of the most jarring scene, I think, for me of the movie was, especially on a first viewing, I was taken aback by the rapid intensity of that scene. Oh, but Pete, you mentioned the tunnel scene earlier.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it was reminiscent for me of The Descent when they light the flare. I know you're a Descent fan,
I am.
and you see the creature for the first time.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of that, and both scenes terrified me. Both scenes made me jump.
I would say the set one made me scream like a girl, and the Cloverfield one, I'd be like, ah.
So you can draw a distinction
Yeah.
between. Okay. All right. We're running a little long than usual, but I think we've hit the plot, and if we thought it was horror, but the build up to this movie, I think that's kind of necessary. I remember in high school this being a big thing, the whole marketing hype behind it. What is the movie? So yeah, we can get into that a little bit. And we said you watched the making of Cloverfield. Did they give any?
They showed a lot of like the filming process of how secret they made everything. They had like code names for the movie where it was called Slusho in LA, and when they shot in New York, they called it Cheese. So like whenever they would gather up and there'd be crowds shooting it, like, oh, do you know what we're filming? They're like, yeah, you're filming Cheese. So they're like, J.J. Abrams likes to keep his project secret, which is could annoy people, but I actually really like that he tries to do that, because there's not a whole lot in the digital age that you don't know.
Definitely.
And I kind of appreciate that for when it's a movie.
I do too, because the internet you can find every single day of shooting, hear something about it, and there's 8 different trailers a year and a half before it comes out, and you kind of get the gist of what's going on. It's kind of nice when you kind of go to a movie, you've only seen a small teaser trailer, and you're kind of left to just see what the movie is. It's kind of a nice experience, which I guess was the big hype behind this. I mean, and you're talking about code names. Cloverfield was a code name for this movie. It wasn't the original title.
That is correct. Yeah.
Wasn't it? Was it the date 1/18/08?
I believe that was supposed to be the original name, and they it's kind of weird how the name came to be. Is that it was just called Cloverfield because I believe is because that's the street, the Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams company. That's the street they're on.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why they went with it.
Is it 10 Cloverfield Lane by chance?
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That's where Bad Robot is it's on Cloverfield. But yeah, and that's the name of what they called Manhattan. And fictionally in the movie, what they called Manhattan after they bombed it was the site area.
Oh yeah.
Like you can see that these are like in the government docs before, kind of like this used to be Manhattan, but we had to bomb all this, so it's kind of like it was the code name, like Manhattan Project back in the day, is Cloverfield.
Man, I really like that they did that, but I'm so mad that they weren't able to explore that more. I mean, I know I know you told me earlier before we recorded that you saw this. I'm not going to say sequel, but 10 Cloverfield Lane or Clover Lane, whatever it's called. Just to kind of give a little comparison thing. But I wish they could have, explore Cloverfield deeper with a sequel a lot sooner.
Yeah, 8 years later it came out. Well, I guess he was busy with Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yes, he was.
But no, I did see it. I'll just go into it now, I guess. That's cool. The 10 Cloverfield Lane, just sort of how it relates.
Yeah, I have a lot of trivia, but that comes later as if you follow our little script.
Yes, exactly. But I'll just dish out to the viewer if you're interested in 10 Cloverfield Lane or how it's a sequel. I would say it is. It's almost like it's not a direct sequel, but it does take place chronologically after the first movie. And I'm not going to give any spoilers because it just came out, but
I know it's described as a spiritual successor to Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Same director, by the way.
Yeah. No, I would say if you liked Cloverfield and you're skeptical of what 10 Cloverfield Lane is or what it's going to be, it may not answer Pete all the questions that you're wondering. Like he wanted a sequel quicker, but I would definitely recommend 10 Cloverfield Lane. It takes off right where the last one ended, with different characters in sort of a different area. I thought it was very well done. It was very suspenseful the entire time. I was on board for the whole movie. But
it does have a pretty nice rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
As well it should. I mean, I thought it was... I mean, I don't want to dish Cloverfield that we're on, but 10 Cloverfield Lane I liked better than Cloverfield. Maybe it's just because it's... I don't know. It looks fresher. It's newer, but I was just more engaged in the plot in this one.
Okay.
And I don't want to give any spoilers, but you might get more answers, Pete, in the future.
Interesting.
If you're looking for answers. So yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane, it isn't a direct sequel, but it is a continuation of the story, and I recommend it. So yeah, that's the sequel. But real quick before you do trivia and such, Pete, one more thing on the marketing stuff, or before the filming.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the auditions? Did you read up on that?
Yeah, that they gave them, I believe it was like scripts for like Alias or something like that. They gave to Lisa Kaplan, and then she didn't really know what she was auditioning for. And then once that she accepted, that they chose her and accepted it, they were like, okay, this is what you're doing, because they kept it so secretive. And I know on set that they had to burn the wardrobe each day.
Yeah, they were very secretive and intense about it. I remember Lizzie Kaplan saying that she didn't want to do a movie if she had to audition like that again. So she was saying, because she had no idea what she was doing. It was completely different, and they had to keep mum's the word about it. But yeah, this was definitely a unique project, very secretive and well thought out, really, the entire time.
If you looking back at it again, is that I was like, man, this feels very like disheveling, like how this plots are unfolding. That's because a lot of research from this movie came from YouTube videos of when 9/11 happened, and then I was like, oh, that makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hell yeah.
So I thought it was kind of interesting that they actually had some of the actors do some camera work for themselves, like like not all the time, but they did do it. Especially if you think of when they used the inserts when they go to Coney Island.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they shot
Beth and Rob.
They shot a ton of stuff for that and barely used any of it. And
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they used. It's like there's only like maybe
like 10 seconds altogether that they use in the movie.
Yeah. I probably shot a whole day.
And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That also this movie had 2 alternative endings.
Oh, I think I've heard. Yeah, go ahead. I think I've heard one of them.
They're not very different. They're just kind of like they knew how they wanted to end it, but with the one of the endings shows that a guy actually finds the camera, and you could see him cleaning off the lens very quickly. That is one of them, and it ends with a different insert from Coney Island. But the one that they chose was the one where you could actually see a satellite dish crash into the ocean, which people like to theorize that that's what awoken the monster.
Yeah, I read up on that one, yeah. Because it was one of the satellite companies that was in the marketing hype or whatever. Or it was the company that Rob was going to go work for. I read up on that, one of the articles that Lindsay sent over. Rob was going to Japan, right? That was the whole going away party.
Yeah.
To a company, and one of the things they made was satellites, and people theorized that was one of the satellites from the company that Rob was going to work at, and that's what awoken the monster.
Oh, I haven't seen that one where it was the same company, but that's pretty interesting.
I think it's all sort of hypothesized.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Through marketing, yeah.
One of the marketing things that that was kind of weird, but probably good for the time, is that main characters made a MySpace page, and all the characters last logged into them when the movie was released. So I was like, you guys.
Almost has like a Blair Witch ring to it. The whole marketing campaign for this, and the filming of it.
Absolutely.
I heard in one of the things that I read that it's Jurassic Park meets Manhattan meets the Blair Witch Project. Was someone's review of it.
What a weird comparison.
Yeah, and it was all caps too, so they were excited about that review.
one of the little trivia I like to end on. You know what? Actually, I'll give you 2. I like this one because the running time of the film without credits is about 80 minutes, which is the length of a long time running mini DV tape, a common format used for video consumer camcorders.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was like, oh, I wonder. That was
I'm sure they
carefully
thought that
crafted.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that along those same lines? Wasn't there a horror movie that came out called 80 Minutes or something like that?
Oh man,
Where it was like it's supposed to be one shot of like a handheld camera, like following this person in a house.
that one sounds pretty familiar, but I can't. The name escapes me.
I think it was literally called 80, but don't quote me on that. Podcast listeners, don't quote me on that.
But the last one I'd like to end on was after the closing credits, there's a mysterious broadcaster voice. When it's played in reverse, the broadcaster says, "It's still alive."
What?
And it's it's absolutely true.
You did it?
You
double checked it?
I double checked it. I watched the movie to the end, and then you hear like a weird thing, and then I looked it up on YouTube, where I heard the same bit, and then the guy just like, okay, I'm gonna play it in reverse, and plain as day, it's still alive.
Oh. How about that? It was. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Thanks for that trivia fact, Pete.
Yeah, you're welcome. I found a lot for this movie.
Me too.
I cut out a lot from my notes.
I feel like I can go on for like 3 hours on this movie, just in the backstory, going into it. Yeah.
Would you defend or destroy this movie?
That's tough. You know, oh man. I'm gonna go with my gut, just on my second viewing, and say destroy it. I'm gonna destroy it. I mean, it's not bad, but I lean towards destroy instead of defend, just because I felt watching the second time I felt let down, maybe the character development or the story, but I was more intrigued by what went into the movie than the movie, if that makes sense. So I gotta destroy.
I would feel that I would say a lot of the general public would agree with you there. Mm-hmm. Because I remember I didn't see this movie right away. I saw it years later. Mm-hmm. And my friend told me, he was like, oh, you should watch it. I think you'll like it. And I just remember people being disappointed with it. And so I went into it knowing the hype just ruined the movie. And even on the second viewing, because I believe I've seen it like 2 or 3 times. I can't really remember. I still enjoyed the ride, even though Rob was a pretty painful character.
Yeah.
And I mean, he wouldn't be terrible, but he's just so annoying with Beth. Like, my God, like, give up already, Jesus.
Yeah. I started to not care about the relationship like 40 minutes in. I was like, just leave the island, man. Just go.
Yeah, if they found a different reason to kind of keep him there, it would have been a lot better. But his push for her got his brother killed, got his brother's girlfriend maybe survive. I don't know if she was in the helicopter that got slapped by the monster. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, yeah. She might have made it up. Lily, right?
Leslie Kaplan exploding. HUD, probably the most likable character possibly, gets eaten,
I'd say so.
Eaten by the monster. And they themselves get buried by rubble to uncertain outcome.
Yeah. All right.
But with that being said, I defend it.
All in all, I defend it. Fair enough. No, it was tough for me, but I think with those, it's so hard. I mean, we have to have some destroys, you know? And this one I felt more heavily towards the destroy. I had to do it. I had to throw the hammer down.
You know, that's fair. I think, yeah, for me, you know, it still gets a passable. You know, it just squeaked by.
Oh yeah, definitely. But then I would destroy it. Well, with that will conclude this week of It Records and our analyses of Cloverfield. So until next week, where Pete, do we have something ready for the folks? Or are we going to leave it up in the air until we send out a mini episode?
We're going to leave it up in the air. Maybe we'll go into it a little bit in the mini episode that's coming up.
Yeah, you hear that, folks? Mini episode. We're going to drop that for the first time. In between our bi-weekly episodes, we're going to try to, every once in a while, bring a mini episode to you, which is condensed form of what we normally do, and talk about maybe a subgenre of horror or a decade of horror films, or just what our favorite horror films is. Bring some guests on. But just for your listening pleasure, it'll be a little condensed form, and we'll be bringing those to you shortly.
Yeah, and that was beautiful said. Couldn't say it better than myself.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Pete. You're always too kind. With that, though, look forward to the mini episode. We'll be telling you what we'll be doing in our next long bi-weekly episode. Until then, I'm Matt Johnson. Remain in the shadows.
I'm Peter Hansen, and you could find us on our WordPress website at It Records. And we're going to be filling that more as time goes on. So, I hope it's great.
Oh, he'll be great. He'll be good.
Thank you.